Committee will come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chair be authorized to declare recess at any time. Without objection, so ordered. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Energy Installations and Environment hearing. I want to thank our witnesses from the Department of Defense, Army, Navy, and Air Force for being here with us today. Before a single shot is fired or a plane takes off, readiness is built or broken in the barracks, on the training fields, and across the bases where our service members prepare for the fight. Today's hearing is about making sure that foundation is strong, reliable, and ready for the demands of a dangerous world. Unfortunately, as is normal in life, there are serious challenges standing in the way. First, the military construction cost premium should concern us all. Every year, we spend billions of dollars to build new facilities for our forces. Last year alone, Congress authorized $17.5 billion, that's with a B, dollars, and according to the department's own estimates, it costs the military about 40% more to build the same facility than it would cost in the private sector. That means nearly $7 billion last year was effectively wasted, eaten up by outdated policies and red tape. That's not just bad budgeting, it's billions stripped away from real readiness from the facilities our service members depend on and from the future of our force. Second, we're carrying too much dead weight. The Army and Air Force are spending hundreds of millions of dollars maintaining empty facilities we don't need. That money should be going forward towards modernization, new barracks, and quality of life improvements, not excess infrastructure. As to barracks, we cannot ignore the urgent need to fix the unacceptable living conditions too many of our young service members are facing today. Poorly maintained barracks are not just a quality of life issue, they are a readiness issue. Each of our witnesses should be asking themselves how swiftly that they can implement the barracks privatization provisions included in our reconciliation bill so that we can quickly reverse the negative readiness provided by our current barracks infrastructure. Environmental cleanup is facing similar challenges. PFAS contamination remains widespread, and while the department is beginning to plan for remediation efforts, it must move faster and pursue technologies that are safe, effective, and fully protective of service members and surrounding communities. On the energy side, the department spends nearly $5 billion a year keeping the lights on at our bases. We need to continue pushing for energy solutions like advanced nuclear power technologies and utilities privatization to make sure our bases can efficiently support sustained operations. Lastly, I want to recognize the clear success Army has provided in its move to privatize its lodging program and my support of Air Force in following that model. Yet strangely, the Navy continues to run its lodging operations in-house, diverting resources away from its core mission. The Navy's focus should be on warfighting and lethality, not on managing hotels. Taking care of our service members, giving them safe, functional places to live, work, and train is not a luxury, it's a necessity for readiness. And not only for readiness, but for retention and ultimately victory. I thank the witnesses for being here today. I look forward to your testimony and to working together to fix these problems. And with that, I turn it over to Ms. Strickland for any opening remarks that she may have.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for recognizing me. First, I will read Ranking Member Garamendi's statement for the record. This hearing, an annual fixture on the Readiness Subcommittee's calendar, is an event of particular importance to the work we do, and also one that I often leave with a sense of frustration. This group of witnesses, all career civilians who have dedicated their working lives to providing support for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardians, and Marines, likely share some of my frustrations. Though you are too well prepared to express those thoughts, You know from firsthand experience what happens when we underfund facilities sustainment accounts or fail to make our installations resilient to energy disruptions or natural disasters. You understand the cost in both monetary terms and in how a lack of foresight and planning can impact the mission. There are human costs related to cuts of these budget lines that otherwise appear sterile on a budget spreadsheet. And before I get into the substance of my remarks, I first want to thank you for your service. It is common practice these days to thank the admirals and generals who appear before us, but the career civilian workforce provides the backbone of our government agencies. So for that, we thank you for your service. In this time when the civilian workforce is actually under attack, I think it appropriate to recognize and publicly appreciate your service, and thank you. In the last 2 years, there has been a renewed focus on infrastructure sustainment, thanks to the good work of another set of professionals at GAO. We were aghast to see poor conditions in which our service members live, and a wave of witnesses came before us pledging to make things better, telling us that our personnel were our most important resource. Yet already, senior leaders are retreating from this position. To varying degrees, we've been told that the burden of sustaining our infrastructure is now, as is now required by statute, is just too much, that we can't afford to dig ourselves out of the hole the department has created for itself. I disagree. The requirement that some find so offensive was a bipartisan, bicameral provision in last year's NDAA, which set a minimum investment for facilities sustainment accounts. Last week in our Readiness program update with the Vice Chiefs, the Air Force told us that this year would see a renewed focus on sustainment. I hope that vow extends to infrastructure. Which our comptrollers may see as a burden, I see as a moral obligation to the people who serve. We set a minimum requirement on investment in facilities, not as punishment, but because the military departments have proven to us year after year that you won't do it on your own. The requirement was born out of years of frustration stemming from this very hearing. For years, your predecessors testified about the risk the leaders in the Department of Defense were willing to take in our infrastructure accounts. We've paid the cost when storms or earthquakes ravaged the department's buildings, often because they have been under-sustained, and the recapitalization projects that would have brought them up to modern building standards deferred year after year. No more. Even with this measure, I suspect your maintenance backlogs continue to grow, but at least it's a start. Sadly, the neglect is not only in barracks and child development centers, it's in infrastructure critical to operations, hangars, runway repair, and communication facilities, to name a few examples. At the same time we talk about our adversaries' investments, we continue to ignore that investments in our installations are readiness enablers. This short-sightedness illustrates two areas that the department continually ignores, addressing contested logistic risks and maintaining its facilities. I'm tired of hearing the same narrative out of the Pentagon, and I don't accept it. What makes things worse is that even when Congress adds funds to ensure the adequacy of facility sustainment accounts, the DoD continues to see these accounts as a bill payer. As recently as Monday, there was reporting that the administration is spending over $1.4 billion on the southwest border. A close examination of the budget execution documents associated with the fiscal year 25 full-year resolution shows that over $1 billion of that came from Army facilities sustainment, restoration, and modernization accounts. And while there are reasonable questions about how we secure the border, taking money from the Army's vital infrastructure accounts is not how we should do it. If this reporting is accurate, it's another example of selling out our service members and the lack of commitment to sustaining our infrastructure. I fully understand that the witnesses before us today are cogs in a very big machine. You give input, but the decisions are left to others. But fear not, I will address these issues again in other hearings with witnesses closer to the decision. That said, we rely on you to advocate for these programs, to use your years of experience, institutional knowledge, to shape the narrative and to offer the best advice you can based on fact, not ideology. The service members and their families rely on you to do that because in the end, it's the men and women who serve who pay the cost of diminished readiness. So I'm going to stop there, Mr. Chair, and that concludes Mr. Garamendi's remarks. Now I want to add a few of my own, is Congresswoman Strickland, representing the 10th Congressional District of Washington State. Mr. Chairman, I often tout Joint Base Lewis-McChord at every single hearing because of the important work they do as the country's largest joint base and fourth largest overall military installation. But I would be remiss if I did not highlight the infrastructure needs at JBLM. JBLM is the only Air Force base that is Army-led. And as a result, all of the real property on JBLM is owned by the Army. And while I understand the Army writ large has very compelling needs, this means that sometimes the needs of our airmen are left to the wayside. This includes Fire Station 105, which was built in 1952. This fire station is McChord's sole crash, fire, and rescue capability for the 40 C-17s that our Joint Force depends on for strategic airlift. And I'm going to tell you something. You have to see it for yourself to believe the state of disrepair it's in. It's atrocious. The fire station has received some Band-Aids over the years, but it fails to come even close to meeting current operational and safety requirements. This project kept being neglected on the Army's military construction list, despite strong advocacy from the garrison and First Corps. It wasn't until the firefighters at Joint Base Lewis-McChord brought this to my attention, had me do a site visit, and we were able to go after it to secure funding for planning and design. So that is progress. Another Air Force priority that falls by the wayside is resolving the ongoing encroachment issues in the North Clear Zone. It took over 2 years for the first transaction to be completed, and there are 20 left to go. Now, I understand how unique this project is, given that the Air Force is providing the majority of the funds, and the Army is managing the real estate transactions. But the services fail to resolve this issue, and it's just unacceptable. Since coming to Congress in 2021, I have been working in good faith with the Army to address the acute housing needs at Joint Base Lewis-McChord. And while I will address this specifically during my questions, I am extremely frustrated with the Army's approach, or lack thereof, to ensuring military families are adequately housed. After 4 years of discussion, studies, and partnering to find solutions on and off the installation, it's clear that the Army refuses to fully acknowledge and work to address the scope of this crisis. However, I promise all is not bad. We have made progress. I was pleased to attend the recent groundbreaking of over 200 homes at JBLM in March, and the groundbreaking of a first-of-its-kind barracks that is being built with sustainable building materials. But we need more housing at JBLM. In 2021, JBLM opened its first-of-its-kind children's museum, the only museum on a military base in the world, which has provided the children and families on base with not just a place to explore, play, and learn, but also connect as a community. I'm also pleased that after several years of dedicated work by Garrison and our local housing provider, that complaints about on-base housing are down dramatically. That's progress. There's always more work to do, but it highlights what we can do when we work together to address big problems and take them seriously. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your patience, and with that, I yield back.
Thank you, and Mr. Moylan, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Oh, excuse me, I was going to skip your opening statement to get right to the questions. Mr. Thompson, you're recognized for your opening statement. By the way, another perfect subcommittee hearing down the tube, so we don't have to now seek perfection the rest of the day.
Happy to yield my opening statement time. Chairman Bergman, Representative Strickland, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to provide a program update for the Department of Defense Energy Installations and Environment portfolio. As this committee well knows, our installations remain the foundation of our national security posture, and I look forward to working with this committee to ensure they are postured to support the President's and the Secretary of Defense's focus on ensuring the U.S. military remains the most lethal and effective fighting force in the world. The President and Secretary of Defense have laid out a clear objective for the Department: restore peace through strength by reviving the warrior ethos, restoring trust in our military, rebuilding our military by matching threats to capabilities, and reestablishing deterrence by defending our homeland. To achieve these goals, we must ensure that the supporting infrastructure is postured in terms of quality, condition, and laydown to support the entire spectrum of military operations. At the same time, we know that our installations are challenged with aged infrastructure, extreme weather, and increasingly complex operational demands, among others. To address these challenges, we continue to focus on installation resilience to support military readiness and operational capability. This ensures our resources directly support what matters most, maintaining ready forces and resilient installations that can operate effectively under any conditions. We're focusing on energy resilience and infrastructure modernization, operational energy, and investing in our innovation and research programs. At the same time, we recognize the resilience of our installations is enhanced by partnering with our communities, and we are making a concerted effort to work with them on mutually beneficial initiatives that enhance resilience and prevent risk to national security. We also recognize that our service members' readiness starts at home. The Department remains committed to ensuring that the DoD's housing portfolio meets appropriate life, health, and safety requirements and provides a positive living experience for military personnel and their families. And we're continuing to address risks to human health and the environment through our environmental cleanup programs. To accomplish these goals, the Department must ensure that we make the most efficient use of our resources and manpower. As such, the Secretary of Defense has issued a clear directive to focus on eliminating waste and duplication to enable the Department to focus on its core mission of defending the nation. In support of this directive, EI&E is leading several efforts to review current processes and regulations to create efficiencies and reduce costs, including a review of our military construction and FSRM portfolios, real property efficiencies, and a review of how we are implementing environmental laws and regulations. Finally, as part of this administration's efforts to counter China's malign actions in the Indo-Pacific, we continue to work with key stakeholders to address DoD's use of lands and natural resources in Hawaii via our Hawaii Coordination Cell. We're also undertaking a holistic master planning effort to effectively sequence development, prioritize needs, and align support functions with mission growth on Guam, and we look forward to working with Congress to address key issues in the future, such as further extension of H-2B visa authorities. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update today. We appreciate your continued commitment to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines and Guardians, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Klippstein, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Chair Bergman, Congresswoman Strickland, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to provide an update on the Army's energy, installation, and environmental programs. Our Army installations underpin our readiness and serve not just for the Army, but also for the Joint Force as force projection platforms. Given our current operational environment, our installations are no longer sanctuaries in time of conflict or crisis and must be resilient, modernized, and hardened to support a variety of missions, whether they be at home or abroad, while defending against evolving threats. Achieving these requirements necessitates a sustained and focused effort. First, our investments in installations must facilitate warfighter training, lethality, and readiness. Second, the critical services that enable our installations to function must be secure and reliable. Lastly, our installations must be as efficient and effective as possible to maximize the taxpayer dollars that the Congress and the American people entrust us with. Part of enabling our readiness and lethality is ensuring quality housing for both our unaccompanied soldiers and our families. The Army recognizes that its deferred maintenance backlog has emerged over many years and has unintended consequences, mostly with our barracks. This is why the Army continues to prioritize funding towards our permanent party unaccompanied housing. This priority helps to ensure the best quality of life for our soldiers and also helps to reduce the deterioration of the barracks. Our privatized family housing portfolio, we have made many improvements for the Army's oversight of our housing providers. This includes new quality control mechanisms that housing providers have implemented to ensure that the repair work is being done timely and correctly. Additionally, the congressionally mandated third-party inspections of our homes allows our installation leaders to verify the quality and status of the work completed. If or when those inspections identify concerns that may jeopardize the life, health, or safety of our soldiers and families, installation leaders work quickly with the housing provider to correct the situation. To project power and provide resiliency, our installations and associated services need to be able to recover rapidly from disruption, whether it's man-made or natural. As such, ensuring access and delivery of reliable energy for our installations is critical. Therefore, the Army continues to explore a variety of technologies that can provide more reliable energy for our installations and our soldiers. We thank Congress for its support for continued Black Start exercises that provide us with vital information about the interconnection of our critical systems and assets and increases our resiliency. Our installations must also provide realistic, world-class training environments to maximize warfighter lethality. To that end, our environmental programs are critical to meeting statutory requirements for the preservation of our training lands and to ensure the water on our installations is safe for consumption. The Army is also improving its business practices by working with private partners to deliver higher quality and more economical support to our installations. As an example, our use of energy performance contracts and intergovernmental support agreements save us millions of dollars each year and help us to develop and improve partnerships with our local defense communities. In closing, the Army continues to strive to make many of these critical investments designed to deliver the highest quality, most efficient, and safest Army installations possible to support lethality, readiness, and warfighting. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson-Turner, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bergman, Congresswoman Strickland, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today on the Department of the Navy's Energy, Installations, and Environment portfolio, and for the opportunity to work together for the well-being of our service members and their families. The Department of the Navy, our Marines, sailors, and dedicated civilians serve with urgency to defend, project peace through strength, and when needed, defeat our enemies. We greatly appreciate your support for the resources required to be prepared to fight and win. This portfolio provides direct support to the warfighters and their families and is foundational to all that we do. Warfighting excellence starts on our installations, our power projection platforms. I remain deeply committed to the task at hand to ensure that we provide the infrastructure to support our sailors, Marines, civilians, and all of our critical missions. Unfortunately, the majority of our infrastructure is not in good condition. As an institution, we have allowed these assets to degrade over time, have accumulated and deferred cumulative risk. The average age of our infrastructure is over 50 years old and beyond its useful life. We have expanded our planning horizons to ensure that the important investments we make at our installations have the greatest impact. In a similar fashion, the Navy and Marine Corps continues to make significant investments in the Navy Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Program. SIOP is a holistic, multi-decade investment that will improve submarine and aircraft carrier nuclear maintenance at Navy's 4 public shipyards. With 40 projects completed to date, we are already seeing the return on investment with increased nuclear maintenance throughput. In the housing portfolio, we know our Marines and our sailors are better fighters if they know that our families are living in safe and quality housing. During my recent visit to Quantico, I was satisfied that our privatized partner was addressing our families' needs with urgency and care. We know we have more work to do to ensure our partnerships are healthy across the portfolio, and we remain focused on this important priority. For our barracks, the Marine Corps remains committed to Barracks 2030 plan. In fiscal year 24, our Marines repaired or renovated 11 barracks, and the Navy in the past 3 years have renovated 14. With the permission to expand public-private venture projects for both Hampton Roads and San Diego, we will provide an additional 11,000 beds. All efforts increase our teammates' quality of life. We are reviewing our critical infrastructure to fully address our gaps in modernization and recapitalization, and are addressing the challenges and threats to infrastructure, including water and electricity grid protection from cyber threats. Our work inside the fence line is important to serving as a good defense community partner outside the fence line. With a strong sense of urgency, The Department of the Navy is looking holistically at military construction improvements and alternative construction to help deliver resources to the warfighter faster. In addition, we continue to make progress on completing environmental cleanups from chemicals of emerging concern and others like PFAS. We are in line with the Defense Department-led commitment to prioritize and respond. All in all, these tangible improvements are necessary to ensure the long-term strength and readiness of our force, but we have more work to do. I look forward to working with you to ensure that the Navy and the Marine Corps have the resources they need to win, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Bergman, Congresswoman Strickland, and distinguished members of the House Armed Services Readiness Subcommittee, on behalf of the Department of the Air Force and the nearly 645,000 active and reserve component airmen and guardians, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I welcome the occasion to discuss the Department's energy, installations, and environment programs, as our partnership with this subcommittee has been foundational to ensuring that we maximize the lethality and warfighting capability of our 177 DAF installations across the globe. One of the top priorities for the DAF is the quality of life of our airmen and guardians and their families. Therefore, we focus investment and innovation on our housing, dormitories, and child development centers. To this end, thank you for your continued support of these critical programs. We have initiated our first ever commercial on-base apartment complex at Edwards Air Force Base in California, and we are seeking to privatize our CONUS lodging in order to modernize and ensure robust sustainment. We're also exploring ways to provide Wi-Fi to service members in our unaccompanied housing. In addition to quality of life, the health and safety of our service members, their families, and the surrounding communities remains amongst our highest priorities. As such, the DAF remains committed to fulfilling our PFAS-related cleanup responsibilities in accordance with federal law and implementing the new PFAS drinking water standard, all while promoting transparent collaboration and engagement with the surrounding communities. Today, the DAF is undeniably focused on ensuring our installations are ready to support air and space operations in an era where China is expanding, modernizing, and diversifying its entire military. As power projection platforms, the readiness of the Department of the Air Force's installations is critical to our nation's security. The DAF's Installation Infrastructure Action Plan, or I2AP, is guiding the revitalization of our installations to ensure the Air Force and Space Force can deliver combat power with the necessary speed, range, and intensity to deter adversaries. The I2AP sets clear objectives, goals, and key actions to align installations with critical mission capabilities, optimize vital infrastructure, and maximize mission assurance. The DAF currently carries about 20% excess facilities and 60% excess airfield pavements. Sustaining this excess infrastructure forces us to invest critical dollars in areas that do not directly contribute to warfighting and contributes to a significant backlog in maintenance and repair. Therefore, we are increasing demolition and freeing up scarce resources by pursuing several innovative approaches, such as expanding the use of enhanced use leases and strategic real estate opportunities. We appreciate the subcommittee's support for improving our infrastructure with the NDAA budget provision on FSRM. This will greatly improve our facility conditions. However, we will struggle to meet this budget requirement in full without first optimizing our inventory. To achieve peace through strength, we must also ensure our installations can remain resilient through disruptions. Reducing our reliance on vulnerable energy sources and rapidly fielding emerging technologies is essential to defending the homeland and strengthening deterrence. The DAF continues to pursue microgrids and utilize third-party financing and innovative partnerships to modernize and improve resiliency. We're also steadfast in our pursuit of commercial microreactor technology at Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. In closing, the DAF is committed to ensuring our installations provide the nation with the warfighting capability it needs to deter our adversaries and to providing high quality of life for our airmen, guardians, and their families to ensure we maintain a lethal and combat credible force. Thank you for your continued support of our airmen and guardians, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you. And as I said about 20 minutes ago, Mr. Moylan, you're recognized for 5 minutes. We're now back on track.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The ongoing military buildup on Guam underscores the island's pivotal role in deterring aggression and maintaining peace in the region. But this investment must come with a commitment to infrastructure that is resilient, not just to military demands, but to the growing threats of natural disasters. Typhoon Mawar exposed the fragility of Guam's civilian and military infrastructure. It underscored the urgent need for climate-resistant construction, redundant power system, and hardening facilities capable of withstanding typhoons, earthquakes, and other environmental hazards. So, Mr. Thompson, can you speak on how ERCIP funds are being prioritized in Guam and whether sufficient funding is being requested to meet energy resilience objectives for both operational continuity and disaster response?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. Specific to the ERCIP projects or the ERCIP funds, there are 3 ongoing ERCIP projects in Guam right now. I can tell you they are largely focused on replacing older legacy generator sets with more modern generators, additive backup generation capability, as well as battery energy storage solutions as well. And I believe one component of one of the ERCIPs is actually a hardened structure based on what we learned from Mawar to actually keep those assets safe. So that's on the ERCIP side. More broadly with the infrastructure in Guam, I know that I was previously with the Department of the Navy and now with the Department of Defense. I do appreciate the Congress support of the appropriations we've asked for to not only recover from Mawar, but make a more resilient Guam as part of that recovery, not unlike what the Department's done at Tyndall Air Force Base or at China Lake as a result of the earthquake there. Lastly, I'll say, just this morning, I actually signed off on a report to Congress that was asked for in the NDAA that lays out the Department's assessment of the resilience of the infrastructure in Guam and makes recommendations, including some of the things you mentioned, undergrounding utilities and other high priority areas with a rough order of magnitude of those costs.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Johnson-Turner, what specific challenges is the Navy encountering with project delivery on Guam, particularly in relations to water and wastewater infrastructure?
Delegate Moreland, half a day. I would say the Department of the Navy has great coordination with Guam Power Authority and Guam Water Authority as we continue to collaborate on infrastructure and utility requirements. As we continue to build up in Guam, we have talked through, worked through, continue to engage on construction capacity challenges, but thankful to Congress for the support with H-2B visas extension, that we have the workforce there to continue in that space. Lastly, to the point Mr. Thompson made relative to Congress's support for the supplemental, thank you for that. We are getting after various projects such as hardening utilities, which will be helpful as we move forward with utility and build up.
Thank you. Mr. Klippstein, how is the Army balancing MilCon innovation, for example, modular construction, 3D printing, with the unique logistical challenges on Guam?
Delegate Morgan, thank you for the question. The Army is using all types of innovative construction capabilities. As you mentioned, 3D printing and modular construction have proven very beneficial in other areas, and they'll be assessed as we begin to do construction on Guam. The Army currently does not have a MilCon project yet on Guam, but when we do, we'll be looking at all the options to improve and to harden those facilities to be resilient.
Very good. I was just at Austin, Texas, also for the Defense Initiative Unit. That's incredible. I hope to see those 3D buildings go up quickly, and especially on Guam. Thank you. And last question, Mr. Saunders. The IGSA with Guam Department of Agriculture for stray animal control is a promising model. What steps is the Air Force taking to expand similar partnerships in Guam to address broader infrastructure and service needs?
Delegate Moylan, thank you for that question. I myself lived in Guam for 3 years, so I'm familiar with the challenge with the stray animals. The DAF is extremely proud of that IGSA with the government of Guam Department of Agriculture. And not only is it the first IGSA for us in a U.S. territory, but it's also the first where we share services as opposed to having one entity provide services for the other. So in this case, both the Department of the Air Force and the government of Guam Department of Agriculture share the service. The Department of the Air Force helps with providing some manpower and equipment, and the Guam Department of Agriculture provides both shelter services and veterinarian services. So we use that as a model, as you mentioned, and we robust that with our local community to look at other opportunities for additional IGSAs.
Thank you, panel. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Ms. Strickland, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Bergman. As you all heard earlier, I represent Joint Base Lewis McChord, and since the day I arrived in Congress, I have talked about housing. So you will hear me talk about housing so much you'll get tired of it, which means the message is finally sinking in. But I'm very pleased, Mr. Klippstein, that the new Secretary of the Army visited JBLM during one of his very first visits to an Army installation. And one of the issues I discussed extensively is just the need to build more housing on post. I was honored to attend the groundbreaking of additional 200 homes at JBLM, but we need an additional 860 homes by 2027. And this was an assessment that the Army did itself. On March 3rd, I sent you a letter on the ongoing housing crisis at JBLM and the need to find creative solutions to addressing this issue, including exploring enhanced use lease. It's very unfortunate that I just received my response the day of the original scheduled hearing. In your response letter, you state that you continue to monitor the housing waiting list at JBLM and that it supposedly does not show a need for more housing. However, when the housing waiting list was over 700 families, the Army stated that the housing waiting list was not an accurate reflection of the housing need at that base, and we need to rely on the housing market assessment. I can tell you that the Puget Sound region that I represent already has a housing crunch outside of military. It's why the cost of housing is so high, because the supply is not meeting the demand. So it feels as though the Army keeps moving the goalposts and we're failing the service members at JBLM. And to be honest with you, full transparency, this started back in 2021 when I first got here. This is not even indicative of an administration, but we have a chance to make some progress. So Mr. Klippstein, can you tell me more about the Army's strategy to build additional homes at JBLM and something more specific other than we're looking into it and we're monitoring it? The need for this housing is not going to go away. This is a rapidly growing region. This is a quality of life issue, and if we don't address it with urgency, especially given the fact that we want to increase the defense budget by $150 billion, talk to me about what we're going to do.
Congresswoman Strickland, thank you for the question, and thank you for acknowledging the receipt of the response to the letter. I would tell you that working with our housing provider there, we're trying to expand the number of houses. In 2027, we're looking to target about $100 million of equity contribution to the housing provider to build out the extra 245 homes that are there. Additionally, there's a piece of land that's outside the facility. We're looking at that as an enhanced use lease opportunity to give that to the senior commander at the installation, and we'll work with him to sort out how to continue to move forward to use that land to increase the housing opportunities. We recognize that quality housing on the in the JBLM area is a challenge, yeah. And we're going to continue to work with you, your office, and with the local community to improve those opportunities.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to switch over to the topic of climate change now. So, under the heading of efficiency, and sadly driven by ideology, Secretary Hegseth is canceling or drastically cutting important readiness programs that happen to have a benefit to climate change. As applied, his decree that the department, and I quote, does not do climate change crap, is curbing innovation, making installations less able to continue their mission during energy interruptions or in the wake of natural disasters, and is generally making the department less ready to fight and win. Mr. Klippstein, in February, General George talked about the fact that the Army's drones did not perform well in cold environments due to lower than life expectancy battery life. I understand that the Army has had several advanced battery R&D programs designed to increase cold weather battery life, as well as lower dependence on foreign-sourced critical minerals. Would you agree that these programs are important readiness enablers, and what are you doing to advocate for these programs?
Congresswoman, thank you. I think it's clear that the Army's invested in finding all types of energy opportunities, in trying to figure out how to improve the resiliency and the extension of life batteries for our soldiers, and to improve the resiliency on our installations. I'll need to take, for the record, the question on drones and come back to you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Jimenez, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know who can answer this question, but maybe you can, sir, Mr. Klippstein. Would you agree with my statement that you need the right energy source for the right mission?
Congressman, I would agree that the right energy source for the right mission would be an appropriate response.
That you don't want to cram an ideological energy source into the wrong mission?
Congressman, I think we would look for whatever opportunity, whatever available energy source meets the requirement. I think that would be a fair statement.
Right, the one that actually is going to get the job done, no matter what it is. It could be batteries, it could be something else, it could be gas, it could be nuclear, whatever, okay? Whatever the optimum energy source is for that mission, that's what we should be looking at, and not looking at, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to win wars, right?
Congressman, I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have an opinion as to what our greatest existential threat to the security of America is today?
Congressman, I think what I would characterize the existential threat to our nation today would be an adversary that could put our lifestyle at risk, that could hold our nation at risk through any type of means, whether it's cyber, nuclear, or otherwise.
Well, that would be a nation?
Congressman, it could be a nation, or it could be another entity that has nation-like capabilities.
A nation. It's something made by mankind, right? It's not a climatic thing. This would be a nation state. Would be our biggest existential threat to American security, right? I mean, the Biden administration said that climate change was the biggest existential threat to America. Okay, I totally disagree with that, and so I want to know your opinion on that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks, Congressman. I'm happy to take that on for my panel mates here as the representative to the DOD. Yeah, exactly what you said. It is a nation state. It is China. It is competitors that pose the existential and most significant threat to our way of life in our homeland.
Right, and so, and China being the world's greatest polluter, okay, I think we need to face up to the fact that we need to, whatever it is we need to do in order to defeat them, or at least hold them at bay, show strength, et cetera, and whatever energy source it takes to do that, that's what we have to follow. Would that be accurate?
Totally accurate, Congressman.
Thank you. Now I'm going to shift gears, okay? Now I'm going to go, I've got a problem in the Keys, and the Keys is housing for our, our war fighters, but also housing for regular people. And so there's, I believe, an opportunity in there, and which can be exported around the country, is that we own a lot of land. The Department of Defense owns a lot of land, all right? And so we've got this issue with housing for the Department of Defense, but we can leverage that land to develop public-private partnerships that not only develop adequate and actually very good housing for our servicemen and women, but also for the private sector. Mr. Thompson, have you been looking at that at all? Not only in the Keys, but around the country, leveraging the property that we own in order to save money, and then also provide a service to the other communities that are around these bases. That the big problem around the country is affordable housing.
Yeah, thanks, Congressman. We have specifically been looking at that really on a few fronts. More broadly than the keys, which I'm familiar with from my time in the Navy, but I'll let my Navy teammate talk to that. On two fronts, Deputy Secretary Feinberg has challenged us 30 days ago. You've got 60 days to identify a plan to maximize and unlock the potential of the DoD real estate portfolio. We've also engaged our partners at HUD. There's never before been an opportunity for DoD and HUD to partner on joint solutions that might meet DoD needs as well as community needs while providing developers potentially access to HUD programs that they don't typically have access to today. So we're burning that candle on both ends, sir.
Yeah, developers are looking for, the one thing that we have is the dirt, okay? And that is one way to bring the cost down, and it's also a way to have them, in other words, they can share or actually bear the entire cost of the project, give us the housing that we need, and also solve a community issue. And so with that, my time is up, and I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Ms. Elfreth, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panel for being here and your lifetime of service to our country. I greatly appreciate it. I want to just state for the record, I agree completely with the chairman's opening remarks, the ranking member's opening remarks, and I truly believe that everybody at the table and everybody within the DoD can walk and chew gum at the same time, and so we have a responsibility to face all the threats in front of us. And I would contend that we can't meet the lethality goals if our installations are underwater. We can't defend this nation if we can't turn the lights on. And so I want to kind of go down that path of being able to walk and chew gum at the same time. So Mr. Thompson, first of all, it's good to see you again. You mentioned, and I caught onto this, the cost the DoD pays every year on energy, and that half is imported, which obviously creates, national security challenges in and of itself. I also believe firmly that nothing is a priority without a plan. So can you share for this committee your near-term goals and what progress we can expect when we meet again this time next year in terms of meeting some of those energy capacity needs, storage needs, all of the above?
Yeah, thanks, Congresswoman. It is nice to see you again as well. Let me circle back to the point about a nation state and existential threats. To be clear, when Secretary Hegseth signed out his direction to the department, it was also clear that in working on our installations and in our resilience portfolio, we were to plan for extreme weather events, build to a standard that would allow our infrastructure to endure in those scenarios. Specific to the energy question, we are, frankly, all in on an all-of-the-above approach. I mentioned the resilience efforts in Guam. They still contain some elements of photovoltaic because the environment there is right for that, as well as battery storage. Likewise, over at the Naval Academy, where I first had met with you, we are still investing in the infrastructure to support the Naval Academy's 2065 resilience plan, which includes energy upgrades, seawalls, et cetera. I don't have to debate why, but I do know that the Severn kind of crosses the road after a heavy rainstorm over in Annapolis.
I greatly appreciate that. And my first CODEL for this committee was, I won't name the base, but they had energy generation in the form of solar, but they had no storage to actually ensure that they could keep those lights on. And I mentioned this last week. I'll reiterate the point that our installations are depending on a 50-state strategy, a patchwork of energy policies, and we are very much, our installations are at the mercy of those individual state policies. And so I would just challenge you, let's think about the low-hanging fruit of when we're already generating, what's the easiest way we can store, where we're not generating and need it the most in terms of the vulnerability of the installation to those threats. I would challenge us. So again, it's not a priority without a plan, so I look forward to working with you on that. Ms. Johnson-Turner, I want to follow up on some stormwater issues. There's a bit of a theme with my district, yes, Annapolis and the Naval Academy, so it's not an everyday occurrence, but it's over 50 times a year that we're experiencing it at our installation, but installations across this country. The Department of Defense analysis shows that more than half of our mission assurance priority installations are under increased flooding risks. You know that. However, the department does not have dedicated funding for stormwater infrastructure and military facilities. How has this impacted readiness, and is the department considering ways to address flooding risk through additional investments in stormwater infrastructure or other solutions to address flooding and related infrastructure degradation? I would say it's not a priority without a plan or without a dedicated fund. How would you respond to that?
Congresswoman, thank you for the question. I recently was at the Naval Academy, for example, and to Mr. Thompson's point, to talk about their resiliency and the fact that, flooding does happen, and it does impact students, the training, et cetera. So to your point, we're continuing to get after whether it's, having resilient power, water, wastewater, so that we don't have mission interruption, prioritizing our infrastructure. I'd be happy to have a follow-up with you to come back and talk specifically about the Naval Academy and their plans for more resiliency.
I would appreciate that specific to my district, but it's also any low-lying installation is going to have this challenge. And again, I don't know if it's a priority until we have a line item and not just, when we have extra money in a specific budget year, we're going to address it. So I look forward to working with you on that. And Mr. Chair, I'll yield back my 10 seconds.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panel for being here. Mr. Thompson, with Milcon project costs being typically 68% over the commercial industry standard and years over the projected completion dates, what is the DoD's strategy for implementing a more modern approach like the progressive design build?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. Similar to my response earlier, where the Deputy Secretary Feinberg has charged us with a real property solution, he's also required us to do a military construction reform within 60 days, which I think he signed 20 days ago. So there are a couple of things on the front. I'm familiar with the studies that show 65% cost premium. Some say 40% cost premium. It's a number significantly larger than zero. One of the things that we're looking at in military construction specific to progressive design build is, one, expanding the use of that authority, two, earlier contract involvement. Over the course of our Milcon reform, I've met with 4 CEOs now of private sector military construction companies to get their feedback on us. All of it is the same in terms of moving left in terms of the constructor's involvement. And then a number of issues that we've identified where we're simply not using the tools we have, and in some cases where we could use some additional tools from Congress, and I look forward to working with this committee on those.
And what do you hope to find in a 60-day directed review of the department's portfolios and procedures that years of conducting business this way hasn't already uncovered?
I will come back to you with a comprehensive list. I will tell you, when I was assigned this task, I was very excited because some of these things some of us who have been in the system have identified for years, and now that we've kind of made our way to a place to make recommendations to the deciders, we've got some really good insights we've developed over years where we have real opportunity here to move schedule left and move costs down.
Well, Milcon is certainly something that concerns me greatly. You had spent some time out in Guam, and clearly you got a level 5 corrosion capability right there in Guam because of the seawater. You've got buildings who have fallen in on airmen and actually injured some of our members in the military. And so it's important for us to not only understand how to best serve our armed forces and our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, our Marines, our guardians, those who truly are there to protect us, but also do it in a cost-efficient way to be good steward of taxpayers' funding. So I look forward to seeing what the DoD strategy is moving forward. I look forward to seeing the cost analysis and how we can be more effective, but also how we can move quickly and rapidly to provide the necessary housing and at least the level and quality of housing that our soldiers and our airmen and our armed forces deserve. So with that, I go ahead and yield my time.
Thank you. Mr. Tran, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panel for being here today. We are now starting to learn about the impacts that months of massive reduction in the civilian workforce will have on the Department of Defense. I understand most of the reductions have been voluntary, but they have also not been strategic. I'm deeply concerned about the impact these substantial reductions will have on executing the very programs this subcommittee has supported for years, including those in housing, Milcon, and energy, just to name a few. If you can start, Mr. Thompson, and then I would like to hear from each of you. What are the risks you are taking operationally and in quality of life programs when you lose engineers, contracting officers, other personnel from Milcon, housing and installation and operational energy programs, and what efficiencies do we lose, and what is the scale we are looking at here in the terms of reductions of jobs?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. First, I'll briefly talk to the risk. I mean, obviously, we talk broadly about EI&E, energy installations, environment. All of those programs are executed locally and tangibly, right? These are civilians working in the homes, in the military housing offices, on the base doing actual cleanup efforts, and engineers who are doing high voltage electricians, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the risk is real and tangible. In terms of what degree of risk have we incurred or carried, I think it is too early to know. We've had a few working sessions amongst ourselves for areas like the military housing office. If that were an area where we saw scale opt-ins to deferred resignation or other programs, then we would want early insight in that to be able to action that to maybe get an exemption to a freeze or reassess. But right now, I don't have those insights to tell you what risk we might be carrying or anticipate carrying in the near term.
Great, and I look forward to hearing back if there are any of those risks that comes up. Can I ask if any of the other panelists want to address this? Mr. Klippstein.
Congressman, thank you. I echo Mr. Thompson's comments. We're still assessing the risks across in a vertical manner as well, from both the department level down to the installation level, and what that really means. As you know, many of them have not left yet, but we know that they're leaving. And so we are looking to mitigate and perhaps even realign the capabilities that we have, but we owe you follow on.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson-Turner?
Congressman, I would just add, you're going to hear the same thing, echo that it's early. To your point, though, I would say that we recognize that civilians are important to the mission. We are in line with the administration looking at every dollar, right, to support readiness, and in some cases, we'll have to do things different and better, but look forward to following up with you as we have more time at this and understand the impacts more.
I appreciate that. Mr. Saunders?
Thank you, Congressman. I'd echo all the comments you've heard before. It is a little still too early to assess. For us, in particular, the round 2 of the DRP is just recently completed, so we need a little more time to assess whatever those potential impacts are. On top of that, though, I just reiterate that it is critically important for us, all these quality of life programs that you described, in that we would look at those to make sure that they're properly staffed to ensure that we don't impact the readiness of our airmen and guardians and their families.
Thank you so much for that. And changing gears a bit to DoD installation maintenance, I've been very concerned about the upkeep of military installations since my days in the reserves. Mr. Thompson, given the large number of military installations and differences in facility management practice across the services, how well is the Office of the Secretary of Defense able to provide oversight of trends in facility management and maintenance across installations and address areas of needs and improvements?
I will take that for the record and come back to you specific to the transient population or the transient infrastructure support. I don't have that broken out relative to the other infrastructure, sir.
Okay, thank you. The Department of Defense consistently requests less funding for facility sustainment than what is recommended by its own facility sustainment model. A 2022 GAO report and recent budget submissions shows that the DoD has typically requested only about 80% of the model's recommended funding in recent years. How was this facility sustainment model developed, and why has DoD historically requested less than what it recommends for sustainment?
Yes, sir. I'll have to come back to you on how it was developed and why. It's been around longer than my grandkids, so I don't know where it started, but I will certainly come back to you with that and a more full answer on why we continue to undersubmit budgets relative to that model.
Fair enough. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Mr. Klippstein, my staff in Louisiana, represents South Louisiana, recently had an outstanding visit, boots on the ground at Fort Johnson, formerly Fort Polk. And I don't want to put you on the spot on this. I just want to make certain it's on your radar. Are you familiar with the rotational unit billeting area at Fort Johnson, sir?
Congressman, I'm familiar with the project. Not all the details, but I am familiar with the project.
Yes, sir. So can I rest assured that it has the emphasis of your office to to get that project completed?
You do, Congressman.
Thank you very much. I am sympathetic to cost overruns on construction like that, because my experience, whether it's private or government builders, is that when you undertake a large project like that, there's going to be some unforeseen costs that you discover in the initial phase. So phase one, it's supposed to be built in 3 phases. Phase one is over budget by about $100 million. So to a guy like me, that's a lot of money, but in a town like this, it's not a lot of money. So I am one of those budget hawks that's watching this stuff very closely, but I also have an objective understanding that things happen in the initial phases of construction that should stabilize the next phases of construction. And I just need that project completed, because those guys need that billeting properly reestablished. Ms. Johnson-Turner, I'm an old Army guy. My father was Navy, so I think we can have a peaceful conversation. The Army and the Air Force has shifted the way they handle lodging to a large extent, and the Navy has not. And I've had Navy guys tell me it's associated with the culture of keeping the crew at the ship, and I generally understand that, but I want to give you an opportunity to explain to the country why the Navy has continued to manage its lodging when the Air Force and the Navy models have led to some improvements in infrastructure and eliminating the need for like appropriated funds for to run daily operations, et cetera. So please explain the Navy's position regarding lodging.
Congressman, I appreciate that question, and the Department of the Navy has taken a refreshed look at our lodging program, looking at it, comparing it to sort of the metrics, if you will, for the Army's lodging program specifically. We have a non-appropriated fund model that we leverage within our MWR program. And so I'm happy to have coordinate a follow-up meeting with you to further discuss
That would be great.
The program.
Yes, ma'am. We want to appropriately support the Navy's requirements in that particular endeavor, lodging, but we're also looking for enhanced efficiencies out of the Department of Defense in general. And this committee and this subcommittee in particular has specific responsibilities in that regard. Mr. Saunders, the Air Force, thank you, sir, for being here today. The Barksdale Air Force Base is home to the 2nd Bomb Wing and the legendary B-52H Strata Fortress. It faces, Barksdale faces 2 significant infrastructure challenges. One, most pressing, being the severely deteriorated state of its aircraft wash facility. It's been explained to me that the thorough washing process is important for maintenance in many ways that you don't really understand unless you're on the ground, participating in that process. And the current, very, very old washing facility requires quite some time to clean aircraft. The new one, talking about $50 million. Again, to a guy like me, that's a lot of money. But in order to maintain the B-52 and the Air Force's mission to secure our nation and the world, is that on your radar, sir? And are you pushing that project?
Yes, sir. Congressman, thank you for the question. I recognize that I've run out of time here, but I'm happy to take the question for the record so I can give you a more thorough response to where
I look forward to that answer, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired. I yield.
Thank you. Mr. Harrigan, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all our witnesses today. Really appreciate your testimony. It's great to be here, and I'd like to emphasize that all of you agree that military installations are absolutely critical to power projection, readiness, and resilience. They are not just administrative hubs. And I think it's important that we keep in mind and that I reinforce that our installations are the foundation for training, deployment, sustainment, and recovery operations globally. They're critically important. You all highlighted some concerns. You made clear that aging infrastructure, energy vulnerabilities, and facility sustainment backlogs are direct threats to our readiness and deterrence. I'd like to stress that these risks undermine operational capability in contested environments. And I'd like to note that while these critical vulnerabilities grew worse, the Biden administration focused its resources and political capital on renaming our bases rather than addressing the urgent need to harden and modernize the infrastructure that underpins our warfighting capability. We are correcting that now. Mr. Thompson, you explicitly talked about small modular nuclear reactors, SMRs, and TRISO fuel development. SMRs are intended to reduce reliance on vulnerable civilian grids, maintain critical installation functions during attacks, blackouts, or disruptions. You mentioned the department's investments in on-site generation technologies, including small modular nuclear reactors, SMRs, as part of an enhanced energy resilience plan. My question for you, can you provide more detail on which types of installations are being prioritized for potential SMR deployment, and what challenges you foresee in operationalizing these reactors?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. I'll talk broadly here and then commit to following up with a more detailed response. So the department, going back to my comment on real estate and energy combined, the department is looking broadly at all of our real estate that could be mission-compatible use to support small modular reactors. We know that keeping AI infrastructure domestically is a national security imperative. We understand where we are in terms of critical mineral mining and refining operations, so we're looking at the whole of our portfolio, assigning the parameters that best suit federal lands or DoD properties with these capabilities and working that really quickly, I think within the next few weeks, to have that site picture. So specific to where would we go with SMRs, I know the military departments have a view specifically to SMRs. We're now cross-checking that against the other capabilities or requirements that we would look to pursue, and I think we'll have a really clear site picture on where those DoD places are that would be SMR candidates.
All right, and Mr. Klippstein, if I pronounced that correctly. The Army manages a vast installation footprint with high energy demands across strategic support areas that are critical for mobilization and deployment. My question for you is, how is the Army evaluating or planning for SMRs to enhance the resilience of key mobilization platforms, especially under contested logistics scenarios?
Congressman, thank you. So the Army is looking at various options for SMRs, and we're working with various private partnerships to take a look at what opportunities in conjunction with DIU and the Air Force to take a look at what types of prototypes could be developed over the course of time. And there's ongoing efforts to look at that, and then where best to place that. And I'd like to come back to you with more details for a question for the record, sir.
Great. I would certainly appreciate that. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, gentlemen. And Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. And Mr. DeLuzio, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, everybody. Mr. Thompson, I'd love to start with you. There's a PFAS incineration plant near my district in East Liverpool, Ohio. Representative Ruley, who represents that part of Ohio, and I sent a letter to Secretary Hegseth back in February expressing some concerns around the department's incineration plans there, and specifically around the EPA's 2024 guidance, which talked about uncertainty around the effectiveness and safety of PFAS incineration. I think you responded on behalf of the Secretary. Just got this letter today, though it's dated April 3rd. My understanding is OSD Ledge Affairs just got it to my team today, but I've taken a look at it. You state DOD continues to prohibit incineration according to the memorandum from your office from July of 2023, I want to just ask quickly and directly, do you have plans to incinerate PFAS in East Liverpool?
Not currently. There are plans, like I said in the letter. I think we are revisiting our current policy on incineration. I expect to get that clarity and a change very soon.
So one, can you commit to communicating with Mr. Rulli and me, given our correspondence here, about any of those plans, should they change?
Absolutely, yes, Congressman.
Thank you. As you can imagine, we've got some concerns with our constituents and our communities about any impact on health, and certainly as you develop guidance in coordination with EPA, I want to make sure you keep us abreast, so thank you. And Mr. Thompson, on a different topic, also to you, I'm very interested in DOD's efforts around pursuing small modular and micro reactors. I know there's been some discussion. I just caught the end of it here. I think it's an important goal. I've got a facility in my district that Westinghouse runs, looking at this technology, looking to bring more of it online. What do those plans look like? I know there's talk about data centers. What are some other potential applications? How is DOD thinking about this as a power source?
Sure. It could be the power source for many DOD installations. When you look at some of the, and we do have a DOD-led working group that just established a few months ago that is working fuel type, waste stream, scale. But when you look at some of the scale of what we think industry can get to in the next few years for a small modular reactor, many of them would be enough to more than peak power, even our highest load installations, and provide essentially power to the grid and provide community or defense community support around those installations. So the application could be coupled with a high demand asset like a data center or AI training model. It could also be used as the base load to support an installation and surrounding community.
To me, it seems there's a grid resilience piece here about shoring up our infrastructure. Is that part of how DOD is thinking of this?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Very good. And I see some heads nodding from each of the respective branches there. Anyone else want to use some of the 2 minutes I've got left to share what you're seeing?
I would just say to your first question about small modular nuclear, from the Department of the Navy perspective, as we talk about strategic use of land, we issued a request for information in 2024 just to see what the response, what the interest level is if we were to offer federal land to site small modular reactors. We received a lot of interest in that space, and as we work within the collaborative of the other military departments and with Department of Defense, we are looking seriously at moving forward with that in response to the RFIs.
I'll just add, for the Department of the Air Force, similar to the other services, we obviously look at micronuclear reactors as an opportunity to address our resiliency needs, and especially in areas that may be more remote and isolated. We're in the acquisition process currently for a micronuclear reactor at Eielson Air Force Base, as I mentioned in my opening comments. And like I said, that primarily addresses both resiliency, but it also is especially valuable in areas where it's a remote and isolated type of population.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll get back.
Thank you, and Mr. Tran, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Thompson, I have one last question for you. I'm concerned about the impacts of rising insurance premiums on the financial health of the department's privatized family housing projects, especially in wildfire-prone places such as California or hurricane-prone locations. Insurance premiums are rising, and sometimes companies aren't issuing new policies. Are these higher premiums impacting the sustainment accounts that ensure these homes are adequately maintained? And how are you looking at this problem?
Yeah, thanks, Congressman. I'll give you the simple answer first. Yes, they are absolutely, the continued increased cost in the Military Housing Privatization Initiative partners for getting insurance is growing as a portion of overall operating expense and ultimately does affect the overall sustainment account from these companies. We hosted a summit back in April with the MHPI partners with a specific focus on insurance. I think we've got an acute understanding by project now of what that effect is. We've had early conversations with some of your staff members from the committee about alternatives and options to address or potentially address some of those insurance costs. and happy to keep you updated or come back to you as we make progress on that.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Mr. Benez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the topic of the SMRs, and Mr. Thompson, on the SMRs, are the Armed Services looking at the ability of SMRs to actually create JP4 and JP5?
Unless one of these guys know, I'll have to take that for the record, sir.
You don't? Okay, I'm gonna ship something to you, because yes, these SMRs could, just by air and water, actually create JP4 and JP5, which solves some logistical issues, okay, for you all, okay? And so I'll ship some information over to you. The other thing about the SMRs is that you're right, a lot of these AI centers are going to need vast amounts of power, and I was talking about the property that we own. I think it would make sense for us to kind of partner with that and sell excess power to them and generate revenue. Because one of the things that I'd like for the Department of Defense to do is see how we can optimize and reduce the burden on the taxpayer for the revenue needed by the Defense Department. And any way that we can start to generate revenue from either excess property or, in this case, if we are going to have SMRs, you know, in our bases, et cetera, which I think makes all the sense in the world, selling the excess power to the grid and generate revenue. And maybe, just maybe, that base will be free of charge to the American taxpayer with the revenue that it generates because of the power it generates. And so I would love for you to see that. And then I'll ship to you the information about the ability of these small nuclear reactors to create jet fuel and other kinds of fuel from the air and from the water. There's some demonstration projects being developed right now. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. I yield myself time for ask a couple of questions here, and one of the opportunities of going last is that we're going to minimize the duplication of questions here, because our staffs all work very hard to get us good questions to enable ourselves to be informed by you all, but you don't need to hear the same question asked 5 different ways by 5 different people. So I appreciate all my colleagues, the variety of the questions. Mr. Klippstein, providing power at the tactical edge is essential to sustaining the Army's most critical weapon systems. Is there any plan to modernize tactical combat and logistics forces to deliver power with low signatures and enable faster, more efficient logistics, especially in a potential Indo-Pacific theater?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman. I am personally not aware of the projects, but I'll take that for the record, because I am aware that there are efforts to reduce power, improve the storage capabilities, and provide longer-term battery capabilities. But the specifics I can't provide to you right now. So if you will,
yeah, if you wouldn't mind just looking within DoD to see if there's a, for lack of a better term, an advanced-based logistics plan to do that. Okay. And Mr. Klippstein and Mr. Saunderse, the Army and the Air Force continue to maintain millions, I repeat, millions of square feet of vacant and underutilized infrastructure, costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in O&M costs every year. Can each of you, and by the way, for the record, okay, not to be answered now, provide an assessment of how much excess infrastructure your service currently maintains, how much you are spending annually to sustain it, and what actions are being taken by your department to address it and either use it or figure out a way to make it disappear? And again, for the record, if you want to make a comment now, if you got some things going, I'd love to hear it.
No, certainly, Chairman Bergen. I appreciate that question. I'm very happy to take it for the record and to give you a response to all the parts of the question there. It's something that we're very passionate about, so we'll take that for the record and provide the response.
Great.
Chairman, I will do the same, because we are very focused on optimizing our installations and our facilities. So I'll take that for the record as well.
Well, thank you, because a lot of times we do we work very hard on creating new capabilities, but we know the long-term sustainment O&M, that's a challenge for any of us. I mean, period. How do we maintain the O&M at a reasonable level to be used in the manner in which it was designed? Again, now another question for the record for all of you. Do any rules or regulations currently exist that limit your ability to consider new emerging technologies aimed at improving the design build of new facilities? I know in earlier a question about DepSecDef authorized a review, a design build review, 60 days. Did I get that right? So again, for the record, are there any existing rules or regulations within that you just looked at and go, you know, this doesn't add value going forward, okay? Because sometimes a rule or regulation is put in place for a reason, but the reason disappears, okay? Having said that, any saved rounds? Okay. I know you know this, but you guys and ladies are on the front end of the war fight. Because if we don't do your piece right, the readiness level of our troops, our families, and their ability to fight and win is going to be diminished. So, by what you do every day, you add such important value, mainly in the mindset of the men and women in the military and their families, because they want to know that you all have got their back because they've got each other's back in the fight. So thank you for what you do, and with that, with hearing no further questions, this hearing is adjourned.